We talked $100 million a lot while we were talking about re-signing Patrick. So getting him for 5 years and 90 feels like a steal to me.
It does. And look, the Bulls were reportedly in the ballpark of $16 million with him in negotiations last summer. I think he wanted 20 or 22. So they weren't too far off. And obviously with the injury that he sustained, cutting his season short, I think they were able to get him at a bit of a discount. But again, when you are entering a retooling around some of the younger players, you want to call it a rebuild, you want to call it a teardown, whatever you want to call it, this is now focused around the younger players. You don't let those guys walk. So even though Patrick has not necessarily been the Kawhi carbon copy that I think everybody would have hoped, they're not paying him to be that. They're paying him role player money in the NBA. This is going to be slightly more than the mid-level exception. It's not going to be this Jason Tatum 5-year, $315 million supermax that he just signed moments ago. This is role player money. This is Dorian Finney-Smith money. And I think Patrick can pretty safely get to that level as a player. He's already a good defender. He's already a good three-point shooter. So I think this is a really nice contract for him. They probably had some intel, I'm guessing here, that other teams were going to offer him as much or more. And so to get this done before you reach restricted free agency, you don't have to worry about a Charlotte, a Detroit coming in with a big offer sheet that you have to match and not feel as good about. You get it something done. And I think it's a really manageable number. Again, it does feel like a lot of money, but as the cap rises, this is not going to break the bank. Basically, this is going to be 11% of the cap next year, and it's descending. So 10.8% of the cap the second year, 10.6, 10.3, and then 10% of the cap. That's a great number for a starter. And I think this is just like the way that the NBA is going. This money is going to get more and more outrageous. But the way that these contracts works is every year you get 8% raises. So if you sign a 5-year contract, you start at a certain number and you get 8% on top of that. But it's not 8% every single year. That interest doesn't compound. It's just 8% of the original number. So if he signed, a $100 million contract, you get $8 million added to his salary each year. But the NBA salary cap is going up by 10% each year. So that's a bigger number than 8, obviously. It's going up at a faster rate. But those raises on the cap actually do compound. So in the first year, if the cap was 100 million, you get 10 million tacked onto that. And then you'd have 10% of 110 million, which is 11 million tacked onto that. And so that grows at an even more fast rate. And I just think that when you're going into a rebuild around your younger players, you want to get those guys on contracts that they can grow into and eventually exceed in value. And I think even if Patrick doesn't make great strides, this is going to be a movable contract. It's going to be a contract he can exceed, and hopefully he exceeds it by a lot and becomes a star player. And he's now making a bargain amount of money. So I think the 5 years helps. You could even look at this as a 4-year, $70 million contract, because I think there's a good chance he opts out and gets even more money in that final year. I just think this was a smart play, and I like the way that they did it in terms of getting it done before he had a chance to get even more money from the Hornets or the Pistons.
Matt Peck, your thoughts on signing Patrick Williams and the contract he signed?
Yeah, well, before my thoughts, I love Bulls Nation and the constant examples of the dichotomy. Anthony saying, terrible deal, come on, what has Pat done to improve over 4 years? Rob saying, wild celebrations on P-Will Island, we're partying over here. Fish also bring up a good point. 5 years of Pat is a long time to decide what to do with Pat, regardless of him taking a leap or not. Like you were saying, Will, certainly at least 4 years of team control, even if he declines out of that 5th-year player option. I was saying the whole time as we were wondering what the heck was going to happen with Pat, the Bulls, and his contract negotiations, if it's in that 15 to 20 average annual salary range, I'd be okay with it, because I think that is value. And you brought up a couple of decent player comps in your column about Pat's contract, McDaniels, Devin Vassell, who are getting significantly more to be a good role player on an NBA team. I saw somebody in the comments earlier saying, dude, 10 million per, come on, or more than that. MJ didn't make that at the beginning of his career. Cool. Also, MJ was making salaries from the 1980s. It's 2024, and because of Michael Jeffrey Jordan and a few other reasons, the NBA salary cap has skyrocketed over the last 4 decades of basketball. Shout out to everybody who has fought for these big contracts from the NBA Players Association. 5 years, 90? That is good value for a player of Patrick Williams' caliber, even if it's just the version of Pat we've seen through his first 4 NBA seasons. The one hang up, and I'm sure you are hung up on it too, Dave, and you mentioned it in your column as well, Will, is he healthy? Right now, will he be healthy when training camp rolls around in a couple of months? Because we have seen Patrick Williams miss essentially 1.5 of his first 4 NBA seasons. Yeah. If he is healthy, this is a fantastic contract. And that's coming from someone who said on a show like a week or two ago, I have never felt less confident and lower on Patrick Williams in my tenure of Bulls fandom overlapping with his tenure as a Chicago Bull than I had as we ended the season with his season-ending surgery before his performance on the court this season. I was at an all-time low on Pat. I still kind of am right now. And even still, if you can't see that this is a value contract in today's NBA, we're talking about 11, 10.5, and 10% of this team's salary cap over the next 5 years for a player like Patrick Williams. That is a steal.
Yeah, it's definitely a steal. Like, I don't see it any other kind of way. And I got to give AK his credit and Eversley and all them their credit on the young guys' contracts that they have signed. They've all been value contracts that they have signed for these young guys with the ability to be even better value if they play to the potential that at least I think that they are, like Kobe, Ayo, and now Patrick. But Matt, you're right, and Will, you're right. The health is what it's all about. I also think the health is the reason they were allowed to kind of sign this kind of contract with Patrick Williams. Because I think if he played all season long and just had a regular, you know what I'm saying, like he did the season previously, he just had a regular year, I think he would have got $100 million. I really do. But I think him being injured again, he feels like he kind of has stuff he still has to prove. And one, he likes being here. He likes being around Kobe. You know, that relationship has been talked about a lot. And, of course, you know, he and Ayo have some love as well. But I kind of feel like he owes it to himself first, and he kind of owes it to the Bulls second to show and prove, and especially this year. Because this is the year I had marked down where I'm like, okay, Pat, this is the year I got you marked down. I've always had him for this year. If you don't see it this year, you won't hear me talk about it ever again. You won't hear me discuss it as far as Patrick Williams and his potential and this 20 points, 8 rebounds, you know what I'm saying, few assists guy who's shooting this high volume from the three-point line. If DeMar DeRozan leaves and he moves into that 3 slot and he doesn't do great, that removes that ideology right there, because that's another one that Bulls fans bring up, including myself, because I just want to see it. I just want to see him maintain at the 3 for just, you know, a week. Let me see what he looks like. And then if it looks the same, then I won't talk about it again. So for me, it's about removing those questions, taking away certain things, and, you know, how people continue to say those things about Justin Fields, or at least myself. Like, oh, no, he needs this. Oh, no, he needs this. Oh, no, he needs this. And then when he got it all and he was still the same, or even Jay Cutler got it all and he was still the same player, then you can move it. This is what it is for Patrick Williams, and I think that injury is why he was allowed to sign that deal, but I do think it was a steal of a deal because I got high hopes for him.
Yeah, and look, I understand why it's a lot of money, like, and there's been some criticism about this deal. I don't think it's been, like, universally thought of to be, like, a great deal. I don't think it comes without risk. Obviously, you have the health concern. Obviously, he has underperformed, but I agree with you that you don't get this deal done if he had played a lot better. And even still, I think this is going to be a movable contract. Guys like him, again, even if you are just a big wing defender who shoots the 3 ball at a 40% clip, you're getting interest around the league. Like this is going to be a movable deal. And so I think it makes sense from that perspective. Could they have, you know, gotten it down a little bit further? I think Obi Toppin signed for like $460 or something like that. Yeah, they probably could have, or maybe they, you know, could have gotten a better deal in restricted free agency if nobody else came along. But at the same time, you also run the risk of somebody giving him even more. So I don't have a problem with this. I'm not saying that he has performed to this level yet, but I expect him to as they get younger. And that's the other thing with this is that was their first signing of free agency. You trade Caruso, a 30-year-old, for Josh Giddey, a 21-year-old. You draft a 19-year-old in Modest Buzelis over, you know, a 22-year-old in Devin Carter, who could have helped you now, or a 23-year-old in Dalton Connect who could have helped you now. And then your first thing ahead of, potentially extending DeRozan is to sign Patrick Williams. I like what this says about the direction of the team. And I think it gives him more opportunity to be on the ball. And I don't think he has necessarily earned that to this point, but that's the opportunity that we've all been waiting to see. And so I think that's what they're going to have to be looking at now.
We all silly like the mayor.